Hey guys, before I get this video started, I just want to say thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. I mean, this is honestly mental. I never thought I'd actually get this far. Just want to say I really appreciate you guys watching my content, subscribing to my channel. I hope I produce good or good enough content for you guys. And I suppose you could consider this video my 1,000 subscriber special. So again, big thanks, and let's get on to the video. Hey guys, it's lrbobl Ryan here, and I'm bringing you my first ranking video. And this is for all you indie animation fans out there, because I'm going to be going through a show that's near and dear to my heart. Today I'm going to be looking at all the episodes and shorts of Helluva, and I'm gonna rank them from worst to best. I'm gonna give little reviews on each episode. Honestly, I could talk for hours about the show, but for the sake of time, just gonna share my brief thoughts so we can get done in under an hour. And also, something I do want to stress is I do not think that there is a bad Helluva episode. There's certainly some I feel like aren't as good as others, but I've never watched an episode and I was like, that sucked, that was terrible. No, I love everything that Spindlehorse releases and really that Vivienne Medrano creates. So yeah, with that, let's get down to the rankings. Alright, now in the number 20 spot I have Season 2, Episode 3, X's and O's. Now I don't know what the general sentiment of this episode is, if most people say they love it or if they say it's just alright, but when this episode came out I had one major complaint, and that was I feel like it contradicted some lore. Firstly, if you go back to the first season, it said several times that Moxie was from the Wrath Ring and not the Greed Ring.
Wrath, huh? My employees are from there.
Coming at us from a little imp from the Wrath Ring. Give it up for Moxie!
And second, there was no point in the first season that suggested that Moxie or Blitz went to prison or that they met in prison. Now, of course, this doesn't mean it didn't happen, but the reveal in this episode, it just makes it feel really sudden. Secondly, I didn't find Chaz that interesting of a character, and his song Chaz Time I didn't find all that interesting of a song. And the episode itself, aside from maybe one joke, I didn't find extremely funny. Now into what I liked about the episode. Firstly, the animation is great. Actually, I'm gonna stop saying that because for all these, it's just gonna be a given that the animation and the acting are incredible. The team over at Spindlehorse does a really good job with each episode. And the one joke I did really enjoy was the few scenes in the episode where all the dicks are coming out of the walls and chairs and everything. That was way funnier than it had any right to be, and it's actually a reason I came back to the episode a few times. Additionally, the scene with Crimson and Moxie talking about sexuality I found kind of funny.
Okay, first off, Dad, I'm bisexual. Yeah, gay!
Lastly, I found the backstory really interesting. I mean, Crimson is a mob boss and Moxie's his kid, so that makes for some really interesting backstory points. And the scene at the end with Millie kicking ass, that is just pure awesomeness. So again, while I'm not personally a fan of the episode, it's alright. So for my number 19 spot, I'm going with Season 2, Episode 4, Western Energy. Now the story I thought felt really sidetracky. I mean, the A-plot is Stryker kidnapping Stolas, and the B-plot is Luna getting her shot at the vet. Now none of that really corresponds to the central plot or concepts of the show, and I'm actually wondering if it would have worked better as one of the Season 2 shorts. Now that being said, the story does open with Stolas talking to Stella and Andrealphus, and they're just talking about the divorce, negotiating. I think that would have actually made a much more interesting episode if they decided to focus on that. And while it was great to see Stryker again, personally I'm not really a fan of his new voice. I heard Norman Reedus was too busy with other projects. And no offense to Edward Bosco, but I feel like it either sounds too angry or too goofy. Another complaint / compliment is that towards the end of the episode, you get this feeling that Blitz is really starting to develop more feelings and legitimate concern for Stolas. And kind of like the scene with the characters talking about the divorce, I feel like the episode could have been a lot more interesting if it decided to focus more on those 2 points. Or hell, another idea is Stolas still gets kidnapped, but not only do the IMP crew show up, but they could also have Octavia try to save him. Not only would that bring her into the episode, but it would also lead to a really big family conflict in this divorce, which I feel like could, I guess, perpetuate Season 2. Also, with Striker's theme song, I did find it charming, but not especially catchy, but I think that's just because I've never been a huge fan of Western music. Some things I did like about the episode, Striker coming back and kicking ass is awesome as always. His scenes with Stolas were pretty entertaining to watch, as well as his fight with Eminem. And the bits with Luna were pretty funny, and I find it more interesting that they could get across a lot of emotion and character out of her without her having to speak a word. And lastly, the ending left some hope for Stolitz fans that maybe things are going to develop further. Alright, now if you haven't clicked off yet, you're probably going to click off now because my number 18 spot, and I hate to do this, but it's Season 1, Episode 5, The Harvest Moon Festival. Honestly, I think my picks for the bottom 3 just show that I personally prefer episodes that cater more to the original concepts of the show instead of kind of these, I mean, I don't want to call them side stories, but at the same time, that's kind of what they are. For me personally, the side story element is something that does hold Harvest Moon Festival back. Now in this episode, while I did enjoy seeing the Wrath Ring, I didn't find Millie's family all too interesting. And this is Sally Mae's first appearance, and I didn't think much of her at the time. Now granted, that changed later on, but this episode didn't really give her a lot to do. Although hopefully we will get to see more of the Wrath Ring when they eventually reveal Satan later in the series. This episode was also Striker's first appearance in the show, and this episode did him really good. I mean, he's this ruthless, bloodthirsty, almost unstoppable assassin cowboy, and the fight scenes with him at the end, I think, were pretty well done. However, the song that they gave him to sing, Sweet Victory, I didn't find all too interesting. I mean, it's a good song, I just didn't think it was that catchy. Also, one nitpick is during the scene, Blitz said he offered him a job at IMP, which I find weird for 2 reasons. One, because him and Moxley clearly didn't get along, and at the time Striker was still working on Millie's family's farm, so I'm wondering how that would have worked. The ending confrontation was great for the characters. I mean, it showed Blitz at one of his most powerful moments when he was fighting Striker. There's also a nice callback to Has Been Hotel with Striker's Carmine-crafted Blessed Rifle.
Oh my crumbles! A genuine Carmine-crafted blessing-tipped rifle! How in the fuck did he get one of these?
And it also gave a nice moral of you don't necessarily have to be physically strong and intimidating to get the job done. You just have to work with what you know and what you're good at. And lastly, the ending cliffhanger with Striker, that did hook me. I mean, I was wondering for a really long time, when are they going to bring him back? And until they did bring him back in Western Energy, I was worried that the show forgot about him. This episode also had Moxie at his most relatable for me personally, because I think we've all been in the situation where we're trying to impress someone by looking tough, but we don't really know what we're doing, just nothing is going our way, so we get really upset and we start to doubt ourselves. I feel like that was portrayed really well here. Also, the few montages that were showing the Harvest Moon Festival, I found that pretty entertaining, and I did enjoy the gag of Moxie repeatedly getting attacked by the shark. So yeah, all in all, it's not a bad episode. I know a lot of people love it, and I can't understand why, but for me personally, I just prefer the other formats of the episodes a lot more. Now for my number 17 spot, it is going to Season 1, Episode 1, Murder Family. Now, this was supposed to be the first canon episode of the show, and my first major compliment is that it does a good job setting up the show for newcomers. It's mainly because the entire episode is just showing the IMP crew and what they do for a living, and of course introduces some major concepts of the show. It also kicks off the transactional relationship between Stolas and Blitz.
Once a month, on the full moon, you return the book to me, followed by a night of passionate fornication. And you get to keep it all the rest of the time, Sound fair, my little imp?
The episode I also found funny. My favorite joke was when Stolas calls Blitz, he starts dirty talking him, and he continues talking even after Blitz gets captured, and then several minutes later when Moxie's running through the forest, he's still talking on the phone.
Not wait to feel your slimy inside of my
Gotcha! So you're a little devil, huh? Come to drag me and my
use while you and I are jelly sandwiches.
The beginning of the episode also gave a good satire on essentially the perks of being a victim. Because Martha survived the attack, she got all this money and donations, and she appeared on talk shows. She got a lot of fame, and people are calling her a hero. That's unfortunately more accurate than we'd wanted to believe, but it's still pretty funny. I also really enjoy the characters of the cannibal family, and something that I think gets overlooked is they're the only humans to actually successfully detain the IMP crew. I mean, the kids capture Moxie, and then Ralphie and Martha, they capture Millie and Blitz, and they actually get him to the stake. And if Moxie didn't show up in the end, they probably would have died. So yeah, powerful characters. I'm kind of wishing we have more of that just to give the characters a little bit more of a challenge. This episode also showed Moxie being an assassin, or more like pushed to be an assassin, and that was cool to see. The episode also kind of had a twisted moral of people are full of dark secrets, so maybe if you have to put a target on them, it's not such a big deal. Interpret that how you will, but it's dark humor and I like it. Now, the reason I put this episode lower than others is because compared to other episodes that have similar plots and just the other episodes that have much bigger plots, this kind of feels basic compared to them. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I feel like at this point in time, the crew at Spindlehorse didn't fully know what they wanted to do, because pretty much all this episode shows is IMP doing their jobs, whereas later in the series, they have a bunch of background details, backstories get revealed, there's some drama along with the comedy, and that doesn't really show up until later. So yeah, well, it feels a bit basic. It's still a good episode. Alright, now at the number 16 spot, we have the pilot. Now, I was sad when the news was revealed that this technically isn't canon anymore, because I actually enjoyed it more than the first episode, and I think it did a better job setting up the IMP company and introducing the characters better than Season 1, Episode 1 did. And this episode, I think, benefits from showing the characters off a little more and showing their unique quirks and personalities. And this episode also had a catchy as hell jingle by Perry Grip, and if you see my channel, you know I made a cover of that. Also, something I was surprised to learn is apparently almost all the female characters, including Millie, were voiced by Erica Lindbeck, and that caught me off guard because in the pilot she sounds almost identical to Vivienne Nixon, who would later go on to voice Millie.
Calm down, Mox. You're gonna have another panic attack.
I am calm!
There.
Guilty and innocent aren't our business, Mox. Killing who we're paid to is our business.
So yeah, Erica Lindbeck has good vocal range. Also, throughout the episode, I enjoyed the little references to Has Been Hotel that it threw in. This came out almost right after the Has Been Hotel pilot got released. And I know some people complained about the kid in the episode, but I found him funny. Alright, probably gonna get more hate for this next pick, but in the number 15 spot I have Season 1, Episode 7, Aussies. Now, I know a lot of people love this episode, but aside from the characters, I just didn't feel like there was a lot to this episode. The reason I gave the pilot a pass for kind of being light on story is because it's a pilot, so it has a legitimate reason to focus more on characters instead of story. But this episode was set up to be somewhat of a big finale for Season 1, and I guess aside from the conflict towards the end of the episode, it just felt very, standard is what you could say. Although sharing some compliments, House of Asmodeus is an amazing song. It's actually my third favorite song in the show, especially the part sung by James Monroe Iglehart. Although I could take or leave Moxie and Vraska's part in the song. And speaking of that song, we get introduced to Asmodeus and the real Fizzarelli in this episode, and they have such a great first appearance. Even though they're set up as antagonists, they're good at it, and you can tell that there's more depth behind what they're actually showing in the episode. This episode also had great character depth for Blitz and Stolas. This is really their first big strain on their relationship, and it reveals a lot about how Blitz is feeling and what he's thinking about him and Stolas. One thing I did enjoy about the episode, and this isn't a criticism, it's just something I didn't enjoy, is this is one of Blitz's worst episodes. And the reason he had for going to the club felt pretty petty, and I just hate the way he treated Stolas. Also, an entirely personal reason I usually skip over the club part of this episode is the scene in House of Asmodeus where everyone kind of turns on Blitz. And even though it's kind of deserved, I still find it hard to watch. One last compliment I'll give, the ending of the episode when Blitz is in his apartment and looking at pictures. I think without spoken words, that really gives you a really good picture on what kind of person Blitz is. He is pushing people away, either to benefit himself or benefit them, but deep down he still cares a lot about them, and judging by all the pictures, Millie and Moxie are probably the only real friends he has left. Alright, now at the number 14 spot, we have Season 2, Episode 1, The Circus. Now, I adored this episode when it first came out, and I still do love it, and that's mainly because I think it's a backstory episode that's done perfectly. I mean, it had a great backstory introducing young Stolas, or as the fandom says, baby Stolas, and Blitz, and showing how they met, how what they did eventually led to the meeting as adults, and how their relationship got started. We also get introduced to Paimon and Cash, who I think made really interesting and funny dad characters.
I'm so good at daddying.
It also gives insight as to why Stolas held on to Blitz for so long, because he was his first ever friend, and he legitimately thought he was also his first ever love. This episode was also super funny and emotional. I mean, Baby Stolas is such an adorable character, and in the ending, or the last 5 minutes when Stolas is singing that song to himself, I feel like that was really well done drama, and then the ending felt super refreshing to just have Stolas put his foot down and declare the divorce.
What do you mean, out?
I mean out! Out of this palace, out of my life. We are getting the divorce.
Now, kind of flipping things over, my one complaint about the episode is the fact that it very much decided to focus on the backstory. And I don't know if other people feel this way, but if an episode just focuses on the backstory or just the episode from another character's perspective, I think it kind of leaves the main story a little bit delayed, or feeling a little bit delayed. Without a tremendous amount of details that did lead to the progression of the main story, I felt like this episode kind of suffered from that. I actually preferred what they did later in the series, where they saved backstories for just a few select flashbacks instead of an entire episode. But hey, if you disagree with me, you're perfectly welcome to. Alright, lucky number 13. Now for this one, I have the second newest episode that got released, Season 2, Episode 8, Full Moon. Now with this and the release of Apology Tour, this is when I decided it would be a good time to make this video, because it would give me 3 months until more episodes come out, and I'd be able to review some of the most anticipated episodes so far. Now, I was very mixed on this episode when it came out. There's a lot of stuff I enjoyed, but there's also some things I didn't like. For one, this episode felt super hyped up. Like, people were saying this is going to be an emotional roller coaster, and it's going to be so either detrimental or developing for the Stolas relationship. Although personally, I mean, aside from the breakup at the end, this episode just felt kind of average. Also, speaking of the breakup, I do think it was well handled emotionally. Like, this is something that's been anticipated for a while, but at the same time, I felt like the characters maybe reacted too strongly. It kind of gave off the feeling like the crew wrote the characters to react strongly so that it could be over faster. And saying that is a touch ironic, because even though this episode is 21 minutes, it feels like it's 12 minutes, honestly. I don't know if that has to do with the pacing of the episode, possibly, maybe. And the cliffhanger ending only made it feel shorter, unfortunately. Some things I enjoyed about the episode is the opening duet between Stolas and Blitz. I thought was really good, and it was nice to see Brandon Rogers cover a song. The episode is also very joke-based, and for the most part, I think the jokes land really well. Although granted, if you're not really a fan of sexual humor, you probably won't get as much of a kick out of this. And then the episode had the return of the Cherubs and the Dorks, which are characters that I love, and for the most part, I feel like they were utilized pretty well. One downside of the Cherubs is I felt like they were almost underutilized at the end, because it was kind of building up to a confrontation, but the Cherubs just kind of go in, fight, and then get kicked back out. There's also the newest episode that Erica Lindbeck came back to voice Luna.
They give you chances to ditch. They probably want out themselves. Just want to be more passive-aggressive about it.
How do you know, Luna?
Because I do that all the time.
Super happy she's back. And Fizzarelli also returns, and this is the first time he's appeared when he wasn't working for Mammon, and honestly, he looks a lot happier. Some more things about the ending fight. While it was entertaining to watch, the beginning felt almost Deus Ex Machina, because there's really no reason for the IMP crew to be following Blitz, and the reason they do give them is, I don't think makes a lot of sense. Also, when I was watching the fight, it almost felt like it was inspired by Power Rangers. I don't know if that was intentional or not. So yeah, overall, I found this to be a pretty mixed episode, but the good stuff does hold up. Alright, so this number 12 spot is going to be interesting, because I actually have the music video Look My Way down as number 12. Now this is going to be harder to review because it's essentially just a music video, but the one reason I wanted to talk about this is at the beginning of the video, Stolas has the Asmodean crystal dropped off to him, and that is canon, so I like to consider this to be the first Helluva short. A fun fact, Look My Way was originally a fan song that Vivienne Medrano decided to make canon, so that was a nice touch. And I know I said I wasn't going to talk about animation, but honestly, this video is just stunning to look at. I mean, anything done with Stolas and the Cosmos is just amazing, and it's something that I could watch all day. And the song itself is incredible. It's incredibly melancholic and haunting, but it's also just so pleasurable to listen to. I mean, you really feel what they're trying to get across in the episode, and personally I think this is one of, if not the best, Bryce Pinkham singing performance in the show.
I will try to make amends for making you means to an end, so look my way, please look my way, and if there's something more that I don't know, I'll save us both before we grow old. If you'll stay and just say, look my way.
Now this song also reveals what Stolas wants in the relationship. He doesn't want it to be transactional anymore, he wants it to be official. He wants more romance in his life. He wants his life to get better. He's tired of people pushing him away, and he's tired of Blitz pushing him away. And the need for that connection, I feel like, is what really drove home the 2 newest episodes of the show. So yeah, I would definitely put this in my top 10 Helluva songs, and I feel like this is also what the drama in Full Moon should have been. If you haven't seen Look My Way, definitely go watch it. Alright, moving on to number 11, I have Season 1, Episode 3, Spring Broken. Now, this is the episode where I feel like they finally figured out how they wanted to do the IMP-centric episodes, because sure, you have the plot where the IMP goes off to kill people, but in this episode, not only do they give them an extra incentive behind it, but it also reveals more of Blitz's backstory and introduces new characters. And there's some drama thrown in with the comedy too. Essentially what I'm saying is it just feels like a complete story. Starting off, I really enjoyed Vraska's character. This is her first episode. I just find her really entertaining to watch, and something you can sense here, and it's revealed more down the line, but you can tell she's a very complex character, because sure, she's mean, she's not necessarily a good person, but there is a very tragic backstory surrounding her, and you can tell she's still capable of being a decent person. Also, I agree that Blitz treats her really badly for no reason. We also get introduced to Tex, her bodyguard, and I mean, he didn't have an especially lot to do in this episode, but he's still a fun character. He's what I would call Helluva's equivalent to a comfort character. The jokes in this episode I thought were pretty good. My favorite being the sequence of the cell animation where Blitz is explaining his plan. And then the drama in this episode comes in with the father-daughter dynamic between Blitz and Luna. As this episode shows, they do have their own set of internal conflicts. I mean, Luna wants almost nothing to do with him, and Blitz is, I guess in a way, getting a taste of his own medicine by having somebody push him away. But these things also bring a sense of depth because you can still tell they care about each other, and even if Luna doesn't want to admit it, she still appreciates what Blitz is doing for her. Speaking of Luna, she had a crush on Tex in this episode, and it was kind of interesting to see a more vulnerable side of her. I feel like it helped round her character out more. Lastly, Millie being badass and taking down that mutant fish was great. Drunk Moxie was hilarious, and Vacated Bone Town is a way catchier song than I want to admit. Alright, we're into the top 10s, and at the number 10 spot I have Season 1, Episode 8, Queen Bee. Now this is really the first Luna-centric episode, and she is honestly adorable here, not just in a cute way, but also in a likable way. I mean, everything she's going through, you can understand why she's going through it, and this episode is probably especially relatable to shut-ins that don't go out too much. We also get introduced to Bee, who's the embodiment of gluttony, but she's surprisingly a well-rounded character because she is a deadly sin, and she, I guess, indulges in gluttony and she encourages it. but she's also a surprisingly kind character, and she can tell when people have had too much. And while Cotton Candy isn't my favorite season 1 song, it's undeniably good and catchy. And the replacement voice actor they got for Kesha, Rochelle Diamante, she is really good, and she sounds pretty much just like Kesha. This episode is also surprisingly wholesome. It was charming to see Luna starting to get along with people towards the end of the episode, and this is another, I guess, advancement to or step up to the father-daughter dynamic of Luna and Blitz. Because in this episode, she calls him Dad twice, and when I heard that, I just lost myself.
Yeah, that's my dad!
I'll be there, Dad.
I suppose the only curve in that is Blitz was super drunk at the time, so Luna probably called him that, knowing he most likely wouldn't remember. And she was also nice to him in this episode, and even though the only reason she was nice is because he was able to get her more attention at the party, it's still fun to see. Drunk Blitz was also funny. Not as funny as Drunk Moxie, but it's still pretty good. So yeah, this is a surprisingly really wholesome episode, and I hope we get more Luna-centric episodes in the future. Alright, and at the number 9 spot we have Season 1, Episode 4, Cherub, or Cherub. I don't have a whole lot to say about this episode other than I think it's really funny. In my opinion, it's the funniest episode of the show. Since this Helluva was originally a comedy, I feel like it does good to shed some light on that. Now, the Cherubs first appear in this episode, and their personalities clashing with the IMP crew. That allows a lot of the comedy to shine through, and it's also what sets up a lot of the jokes throughout the episode. Because the way that this episode plays out, it feels like a reference to the play A Christmas Carol. While the Cherubs are essentially playing the ghosts, the IMP crew are just the demons that are ready to ruin everything. Lyle Lipton and Lupti I found to be really fun characters, and I'm actually kind of sad they haven't returned yet. And my favorite joke in the episode is where the piano is coming at Lyle, he moves out of the way, and the trajectory follows him anyway. I mean, that's just pure classic cartoony humor. And the ending fight in this episode was also really well done. I mean, this whole show is really good at directing fights, but what makes this one interesting is that it's scored by classical and operatic music. And I don't know why, but that always fits really well. If you've seen A Clockwork Orange, then you know what I mean by that. So yeah, not much else to say. I just think the episode's really funny. Alright, now at the number 8 spot, we have the first official short of the series, which is Hell's Bells. Now this caught me off guard because I had no idea Helluva was doing shorts now, and this actually came out on the original release date for Full Moon. Now this episode is unique because it's just a day out or a day in the life of Millie and Sally Mae together. And like I mentioned before, Sally Mae is a really popular character among the fandom, and while I didn't think of her much before, this episode proved to me that her character has potential and she could become an integral part of the show. Now, the dynamic between Millie and Sally Mae is just very sweet and wholesome in a sibling love kind of way. But it's when they start to talk about the rocky parts of their relationship that allows some drama to sink in. And it's honestly kind of sad. Like, it leaves you wanting good things to come these characters' way. And another interesting thing about this episode is it's kind of giving you a tour around M City. I mean, whatever appears in the show, it's always presented as like this very ramshackle, crime-ridden city. But when it shows you what's actually in it, you get to see a lot more of what it has to offer, even some comforts it provides. Like, it just feels like a normal city. And I feel like that shines some depth onto the Pride Ring, and I'm kind of hoping the other rings get that same treatment. Also, if you don't know, we're apparently getting more Helluva shorts for each month in between the full episode releases, so we should be getting through to shorts before the next episode gets released in October. And lastly, I think the idea of shorts is a really good idea, not just to hold people over, but because if they make them canon, that can allow for extra character depth and catalysts and resolutions to build off of other episodes. Alright, now in the number 7 spot, I have the most recent episode, Season 2, Episode 9, Apology Tour. Now, this is something I was anticipating for a really long time because it feels like ever since the end of Season 1, they started to shift the focus of the show from the main concepts to being more of a redemption story for Blitz. And honestly, I'm all for it because I think Blitz is a really good character, and it would make me happy to see him sort of take control of his life again and build it back up. This episode also sees the return of Verosika, and she's great as always, and we also get to see a softer side of her, which I thought was nice. And then this episode starts with the aftermath of the full moon and the new dynamic between Blitz and Stolas. And spoiler alert, it's not good. It really leaves me wondering how are they going to fix this in the future. Although one thing I really wish they did in the episode was having a chance to fully vent out their frustrations and insecurities. I mean, they kind of have that in the beginning, but I feel like if there was a moment where they could just be truly honest with each other, that would really help the characters develop further. And throughout the episode, Blitz tries a few times to do that again, but he honestly just can't get out of his own way. There's also a fun callback in this episode, because apparently Martha and Mrs. Mayberry are a couple now, although that does leave me wondering what happened to Ralphie and their kids. Another nitpick I have in this episode is the songs didn't find especially catchy, and especially the song All To You. And no offense to Bryce Pinkham, obviously I think he's an amazing singer, but I feel like the Stolas voice doesn't really fit well in the soft rock genre that they were going for. Now, the ending of this episode was also well handled. I mean, things are a little better between Blitz and Verosika, and he acknowledges that he wants to better himself, but that's going to take time. So hopefully we'll get to see how that development goes throughout the rest of season 2.
Hail the Demon Prince, Stolas!
I was told there would be cake.
Alright, now in the number 6 spot, I have Season 2, Episode 5, Unhappy Campers. Now, from what I hear, this episode got mixed reception when it came out, but the one thing everyone could agree on was how great and refreshing it was to have Millie essentially get her own episode and really have a chance for her character to shine. And the way that they utilize her in this episode is great, because they're essentially just amplifying all of her talents and skills to really make people love her. And that also leads to some comedy between her and Moxie's jealousy over being separated into two completely different social statuses. Personally, I think the funniest part was during the Banjo solo scene where the episode starts playing around with subtitles, and the subtitles are essentially roasting Moxie. The songs in this episode were also really awesome. I mean, Regular Joe and You Got the Power, those are such bangers. And Sam Haft really knows how to write rock music. Now, the subplot for this episode sees Blitz tracking down his sister Barbie Wire, and this is the first time she actually appears in the show. And seeing Blitz trying so hard to reunite with her, it was honestly really sweet, and it was also heartbreaking with how the episode ended up going. Now, we don't have an official reason as to why Barbie Wire hates Blitz. I mean, there's several theories going around, mainly having to do with the circus accident when they were kids, but we don't officially know yet. And I hope Barbie Wire returns in the future, although, judging by the way she exited this episode, I'm guessing she won't be returning for some time. And I also enjoyed Barbie Wire as a character, so I feel like she has the same internal conflicts as Verosika. She's obviously not a great person, but she also has a tragic backstory, and she's just trying to rebuild her life in her own way. And then her work incidentally leading to what Moxie and Millie are doing. That was a nice touch. Also, one last thing for this episode is it takes place largely on Earth, but what this episode does differently is instead of just using Earth as the battleground for the murders, it actually uses it as a spot for character development. It actually lets the characters interact with humans like normal, which was a completely different dynamic that I kind of want to see more of. Alright, we're in the top 5s, and this is what I consider to be the really great stuff. So in the number 5 spot, I have Season 2, Episode 6, Oops. Now this episode has a lot going for it, and what caught me off guard was just how great of characters Fizzarelli and Osmodeus are. I mean, this episode opens with showing their relationship, and it's honestly just so functional and sweet and cute. And Fizzarelli in this episode is adorable. I mean, he has the personality of a puppy.
Oh, you know what I'm craving? Burgers!
No, it's too early for burgers, you maniac.
I just want to go home.
And this episode is also what I consider to be Blitz's first redemption episode, because he's essentially just building his friendship back with Fizzarelli. And they cleverly do that by having them get trapped together in the episode, so they're essentially forced to talk to each other and forced to work together in order to get out. And Fizz is still traumatized by his past, and towards the end of the episode, Blitz uses that as extra incentive to save him, and it works out really well because he essentially corrects his mistake that he made so many years ago. The backstory they show between Blitz and Fizz, I mean, it's very dark, but it's also very good, and you completely understand why, for so many years, they hated each other. Crimson Striker also returned this episode, and It's set up as a very mob mafia style, and that allows a lot of comedy to shine through.
Now cut. I said cut it, you fucking...
Keep it down! I'm shooting 8-ball over here!
And then Solus has a brief role in this episode with getting the Asmodean crystal and kind of playing lawyer for Asmodeus. And Solus is also really cute in this episode.
Oh, this will be fun. I love words.
Also, the song Look at This I consider to be a stroke of genius songwriting. I mean, it's so funny and it works so well with the story. And if you watch the clip instead of just listening to the song, it just makes it that much funnier because of how things fit in. It's also a guide for how to distract people using improv. One nitpick I do have of the episode is they kind of turn Blitz into an escape artist, but it does fit the whole mafia crime tone. Alright, now to the number 4 spot, we have Season 1, Episode 6, Truth Seekers. Now, I'll admit, when this episode originally came out, I actually didn't enjoy it all that much. I didn't really understand what the trip scene was about, and I thought the action was a little too over-the-top violent. I'm happy to say, upon rewatch, I loved it. Like, this is a terrific episode. First off, Bad Trip is such an amazing song, and then the Moxie part it's a nod to the Phantom of the Opera, which is my favorite Broadway musical of all time, and the Blitz part, that's really the first in-depth look into his inner demons that we get. We start to understand, I guess, his flaws, what he's doing, and where he's going to end up if he continues being this way. The interrogation scene with the agents, that to me is one of the funniest scenes in the series, and Agent 1 and Agent 2 are really funny characters, and I'm happy that they're returning characters. And the fight scenes in this episode are actually brilliant, especially the ending fight with all the agents. I mean, that's set up in somewhat of an uncut shot. Well, it focuses on each character individually. And I mean, the way it's animated, the way they utilize all the weaponry, it's just really well done. This episode also reveals a subtle threat to IMP because now humans are onto them, they know they exist, and they know that demons in hell exist. And that's a conflict that's sort of been growing since the agents returned in Full Moon, because now they have this giant facility with all this technology. So something new that this episode does is actually throw in a bit of horror, because when Stolas saves them at the end, they play it off as a very Hollywoodized, dramatic, demonic possession and exorcism scene. Now, if you're familiar with ghost movies, particularly the Exorcist or The Conjuring, then you'll probably know what to expect. But yeah, it's really well done. It shows a part of the immense power that Stolas has, and I hope they do that in the future. This episode was also great for development between Moxie and Blitz, not just together, but individually. I mean, Moxie's learning to stand up for himself better. Blitz is sort of starting to redeem himself by trying to be a better friend to Moxie. They both admit to each other in a hard scene that they have conflicts and that they can help each other improve. Now, my number 3 spot is also going to be kind of controversial, but it's Season 2, Episode 2, Seeing Stars. Now, this episode gets a lot of hate, and it also gets a lot of love. People who love it tend to focus more on the emotional side. People who hate it tend to focus more on the story side. I fall into the group who loves it, but personally, I think the story, while the emotion's really well done, I think the story only complements it. This is also the episode that really got me hooked on the series, because I enjoyed the show after Season 1, but I didn't fully love it. I wasn't fully hooked until I saw this episode. It's a episode focused on Stolas and Octavia, kind of the dynamic they have. It's sort of acting like a sequel to Lululand. Now, in a way, that's kind of a criticism, because you could say they're just running the same conflicts that they did in that episode. That conflict being that because of the divorce, she feels like her dad doesn't really care about her, and even though they obviously love each other, I mean, I mean, Stolas loves Octavia more than Earth and Hell itself, but despite their rocky relationship, you can tell that they still care about each other. And the truth really rains out towards the end of the episode, where Octavia and Luna have a really nice heart-to-heart. I mean, it's total big sister, little sister moment, and it is essentially saying, cut your dad some slack, he's going through a lot too, just like you are. And all that is set under beautiful visuals, and it's just a really effective moment. Also, Luna was surprisingly helpful in this episode. I mean, she pretty much does everyone's jobs for them, and she's just this really supportive, almost mentor to Octavia. And Octavia is my second favorite character next to Blitz, and it's mostly because she's so sympathetic and justifiably angsty, but she's also the only character in the show that I can actually call a good person. The TV show bit with Stolas and Blitz is also pretty funny, and what makes it awesome is just how into it Blitz gets, as he kind of goes back to his performance art days. And it was also clever the way that his character was a nod to his voice actor, Brandon Rogers.
Look, everyone! It's Hollywood star Brennan Rogers!
There's also some more emotion thrown into that TV show bit, where it shows the backstory between how Blitz met Luna, and it's a really good moment. It just reveals a lot about why Blitz cares so much about Luna. Two nitpicks I have with the story is the TV show, I mean, it didn't have a whole lot to do with the central plot of the episode, and Octavia never got to see Azathoth's tears, the meteor shower. I feel like after everything she went through in this episode, that's the least she could have gotten. But yeah, if you're looking for an emotional episode that's done well, I would definitely recommend this. Alright, so my picks for the top 2 episodes went back and forth a bit for a while, but after rewatching the episodes, I think I've made the final decision. So my number 2 spot is going to be Season 1, Episode 2, Lululand. This episode is also very Stolas and Octavia focused, and it's really what sets everything up. It shows the origin behind it, and it shows their rocky relationship, and the ending is sort of how they come around to maintaining it until Seeing Stars happened. But this episode is also very character deep for Stolas, because it's explaining the conflict with his divorce. It's showing the spots where he kind of messed up, but it's also showing how good of a father he is and how much he's trying. Although one nitpick is Stolas probably shouldn't have been flirting with Blitz throughout the episode, because that was just making everything worse. And then towards the end of the episode, when everything is crumbling down, Stolas and Octavia have this really sweet heart-to-heart where all the fears of Stolas leaving are just gone, and it gives a nice message that the best way to resolve a conflict is just clear communication. This episode also has my favorite song in the series, You Will Be Okay. I just think it's a masterpiece of a lullaby, and I think it's a masterpiece of a love letter, and if you've seen my channel, you know I love that song. And speaking of songs, Lululand, sung by RoboFizz, that's also a really fun song, and it has a nice reference to the Has Been Hotel pilot in there. Now, the funniest parts of this episode belongs to Eminem when they were exploring the carnival. I mean, there's a ton of visual jokes where if you blink, you'll miss it, but my favorite part is when they're at the booth and they're trying to win the Thing plush, and the Thing plush itself is really funny in its design, and it's also a reference to Gravity Falls. And yeah, if someone was trying to get into Helluva, I'd say start with the pilot, and if that didn't hook you, I'd say skip to this episode. And if you've been following along and doing process of elimination, you'll know that my pick for the number 1 spot is Season 2, Episode 7, Mammon's Magnificent Musical Mid-Season Finale. Now, oh my god, this is such an epic episode, not just in length, but in characterization. I mean, it follows Fizzaroli's life essentially as a celebrity performer, and it sheds a lot of light on how he's living, how he feels he's supposed to live, what other people expect of him, how he feels like he needs to be to please those around him. And it also sheds some light on sort of the struggle of being a celebrity, where regardless of what's going on in your personal life, you still have to put up this happy and virtuous persona to essentially please those that look up to you. Additionally, it shows how fans can be pretty toxic. One fan specifically in this episode, he was very antagonistic. I'd say arguably the most antagonistic next to Mammon in the episode. Although with that also comes the good fans. There's this really wholesome moment in the episode with Fizzaroli and Oliver has great inspiration from Fizz, and and in a way he sort of helps give him the courage to quit. And unlike pretty much when he's interacting with everyone else around him, he actually looks legitimately happy to be with Oliver and sign his autograph for him. But yeah, it's just a really sweet moment that could get anyone emotional. Although after this episode, I'm wondering if Oliver still wants to become a clown. This episode also features 4 songs, which I think is a record for how many they've put into one episode. And in case you're curious, this episode is 30 minutes long. Clown Bitch is a very good antagonistic song. It's explaining how, or what Glitz and Glam want to do, how they plan on selling themselves, and it's very amplifying of the stress that Fizzarelli's feeling because he feels like he can't win compared to them. Juggling is Cool is a really funny song, and it does well to sort of guide the audience and speed up the performance montage that happens in the middle of the episode. Hercule is a very romantic song between Fizzarelli and Asmodeus, and interestingly it's scored by only an acoustic guitar, which you don't see that often. But yeah, kind of like with Stolas and Octavia resolving, it's showing that your problems can go away through clear communication, and in that moment just reveals how much they do care about each other, how much they love each other. And Fizzarelli is afraid that if he's not this big shot performer, he's not good enough, but Ozzy says he is good enough. But yeah, that's definitely in my top 10 Helluva songs. And then the final song, and my personal favorite, 2 Minutes Notice. That is such an epic song, and it's such a big anthem for anyone that's stuck in a bad position. It's probably my second favorite song of the series. The way it flows with the showmanship and Alex Reitman's incredible vocal performance.
I played the game, I've won it all. They've screamed my name, they bought the doll. I've seized the day, now I've got one thing left to say. Hey, hey, fuck you! Here's my 2 minutes notice, fuck you! Time to quit and smell the roses.
It's just such a good song about somebody leaving abuse. Also, Glitz Glam and Mammon were I found to be really good antagonists, and I think it was revealed that they're actually going to appear later in the series. And I'm curious to see how that plays out. We saw in Full Moon, Mammon is trying to purge himself of all the Fizzarelli merch, and I feel like Glitz and Glam are probably going to be a darker reflection of Fizzarelli as a performer. And I'll say it again, this episode does a really good job showing the Fizmodius relationship. In the episode Oops, that kind of just focused on the good side of their relationship, but this actually feels more well-rounded because it's showing the parts that they are struggling with. And the main point of that is just showing how they overcome it and how much they support each other. And because of all this, it became one of my favorite ships in the show. And this episode's not hugely comedy-based, but it does have a few good jokes in them. One being in the beginning when Mammon says women aren't funny, and then it shows Vivienne Medrano's writing credit. I thought that was pretty clever. And then the whole Fizzy commercial, that is pure comedy. I watched that so many times, and if the Fizzies are real, I would definitely get a Fluffy Toy Fizzy and a Wait in Line for You Fizzy. And then the ending, I want to re-emphasize how epic it feels. It'll leave you so satisfied and so feeling good for the characters at the end. And all of that build-up really makes me feel like this was the formula they should use for their finales. Because compared to Ozzy's, this one felt so much more finale-worthy. You could probably end season 2 right here and nobody would bat an eye, but because they're continuing to go, I'm really excited to see how they decide to cap it all off. If you're looking for a great episode, I would definitely recommend this. Well, there you go. That was my ranking for all 20 Helluva episodes. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I agreed with some of your guys' opinions. I imagine none of you agree with all my opinions. Feel free to leave your rankings down in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.